Hey guys, Matthew here. So today I'll be bringing you a video on basically the new challenger in town, which is Craft of Exile. This, if you are a new crafter or somebody getting into crafting, or even if you're a very experienced crafter, is basically going to change your life. This website is incredible. I cannot really tell you how good it is because it really is a game changer when it comes to crafting, and anybody who wants to get into crafting should start to get accustomed to this website. So this video is going to be pretty long, so grab yourself a drink or something and let's get right into it. So before anything, I want to talk a little bit quickly about how it works. So let's go ahead and take any random example. One thing that I've been asked a lot on stream is bleed bows. So let's go ahead and look at bleed bows in this example here. So how the website works essentially is that you are greeted with this page here, and you're going to choose what you want to craft. So in this case, I want to craft a citadel bow, which is the best base for bleed bows. Now, if I'm trying to craft a bleed bow, I can actually verify which influence the mods that I want is from. And for example, bleed bow would be an elder mod, so I can go under influences and add elder, and all of a sudden I have access to elder mods as well. So if I want to craft a bleed bow, I would go ahead and press and tick on, you could say, the bleed the bleed modifier. Now, it wouldn't tell me any prices or any odds or anything because I haven't chosen yet how I'm actually going to craft this specific thing. So before I get into this little bit more advanced stuff, let's start with the beginning and tell you guys how the website works. So in Path of Exile, as I've explained a couple times already, everything when it comes to modifiers are basically weights in a pool, right? So for example, the weighting for elemental damage with attack skills when it comes to bows is a weighting total of 1800 divided by 6 tiers of 300 each, and this weighting is basically, in terms of prefixes, is 1800 in a pool of 58,058, which is a 3.1%. And in terms of the actual bow as a whole, it's a 1.2% because it's 1,800 divided by 58,000 plus 58 plus, 50,058 plus 91,750. So if you take this, you add it to this, and then you divide 1,800 by that number, you will get 1.2%. That's essentially the gist of it. That's how easy it is to basically understand the odds of hitting any one affix on an item. Very, very simple. Where it gets complicated is when you're asking, basically trying to figure out what are the odds, of getting multiple affixes on an item. Because then, essentially what you're doing, let's say I'm asking for this modifier here, right? Chance to bleed, which has a weight of 500 in a pool of 58,000 as prefixes, so 0.61%, but then also a weighting of 0.334% as an affix in general, right? If I was to go order of alterations, I should see, if I'm using augments, this mod every 117 alterations and 36 augments, right? But what if I also wanted, let's say, some physical damage, such as, tier 1 or T2 physical damage, which are deemed basically, very expensive bleed bows in Path of Exile, you would see that then the odds are now basically the same. And the reason for that is because these are two prefixes, and when it comes to magic item, you can only have one prefix and one suffix. So it's now telling me not only the odds of getting this, but it's telling me the odds of getting this or this, right? So if I wanted to know the odds of getting both these two things at the same time, I would have to look at chaos orbs. Now, the odds of getting this or this when rolling chaos orbs is, as you can see, 26. that is the odds of rolling one or the other. And that is something a lot of people kind of get mixed up with, is with the P1 and P2. P1, P2 stand for prefix 1, prefix 2, prefix 3, or suffix 1, suffix 2, suffix 3. And what it means is the odds of rolling this or that. Basically, if they are under the same P number or suffix number, it's the odds of rolling this or that. Now, if you wanted to see the odds of rolling this and that, you have to choose to put them aside. So this would be the odds of rolling bleeding and physical damage, you know, to bows, well, to the bow itself, of tier 1 or T2. And then that would become once every 4,300 chaos. Right? So how the website is basically finding this is that it's computing all the different permutations possible when it comes to rolling this mod and this mod, period, right? So you can actually look, if you wanted to, what are the odds of rolling, and it would tell you exactly basically where the numbers come from and how they are being, you know, calculated, if you're into statistics and want to see how exactly it's done. But the grand scheme of things is basically the short version is that it's calculating every single permutation possible for these two modifiers. So, for example, it's calculating that there is a 60% chance, sorry, 65% chance that your item rolls a 4 stat. There is a 25% chance that it rolls a 5 stat, and 10% chance that it rolls a 6 stat item. So it takes that into consideration. It also takes into consideration the fact that if this mod rolls first in the pool, the weighting of it is removed when it comes to the odds of rolling the second modifier, which means basically if I'm asking for this modifier and this modifier, right? And this modifier has a weighting of 400, and this modifier has a weighting of 500, and I end up rolling this modifier. Now, all of a sudden, all of these modifiers can no longer roll, because you can't get the same roll twice on an item, right? So the 7,000 weighting no longer applies to the complete pool of both prefixes, but also prefixes and suffixes. So it calculates that and removes that 7,000 from the pool when it comes to choosing, or the odds of choosing the bleed modifier. And it's the same thing for any other modifier. So it's going to take into consideration what are the odds of, say, rolling socketed bow gems, which is 2,000. And if it rolls that, then you have to remove that 2,000 from the odds of from the total pool to know the new odds of rolling this and that. So it takes every single one of those permutations, which you can see under final calculation, and then it tells you basically with a very, very accurate number what are the amount of tries or how much it should cost to craft that item. So for example, if I'm chaos spamming, I'm expected to see this within 4,301 chaos 63% of the time. So 63% of the time, the confidence level essentially is you have to think of statistics as a bell curve, right? So let me go ahead and show you what I mean by that. Essentially what that means, just real quick, is that this is like your statistics, right? You have a bell curve. This is kind of what it looks like. This would be the 63% would be right here, right? This would be your 63%. 63%. So the odds of rolling this modifier, these two modifiers, sorry, within 4,300 tries is within 63% chance. So every 63 tries out of 100, you should see these modifiers within 4,300 chaos. But that means that there's also a 100 minus 63, which is 37% chance divided by 2 to either be lucky, or well, this is unlucky, or to be lucky. So there's also a 37 divided by 2, which is what? 38 is 19, so 18.5, I guess. there is an 18.5% chance that you will be unlucky and you will not see it within 4,300 chaos, but there's also an 18% chance that you'll be lucky and you will see it before 4,300 chaos. That's essentially how statistics work in a nutshell. Everything is basically a bell curve. Pretty simple. And every one of those permutations are within that 63%. Or sorry, that 100%. But the bell curve, statistically speaking, you have a 63% chance to see it every 4,300 chaos. That's essentially how the website works and how it basically spits out the numbers that you're seeing. So that's on the, you could say, the math part of the website. Now let's get into the interesting part of the website, which is basically finding the best ways to craft different things without really having too much knowledge of crafting in general, which is what I think this website is absolutely magnificent for. So let's say I'm a new player, right? And I see a build guide on a bleed bow gladiator build, and I'm like, I want to play that. You know what, Ziggy D? That looks like a cool build. So I want to play that. But I don't only want to play that. I want to play that with a really good bow. So how do I go about making a really good bow? I go on Craft of Exile. I type in the bow that I want, the influence that is required, and then I'll go to fossils. Now what I'll do when I get to fossils is I'll go ahead and not choose any fossil, because we can actually let the website tell us which fossils are the best to use. So what I'll do here instead is I'll choose the modifiers that I want. So in this case, I would want bleeding modifier, right? And I would want physical of either tier 1 or tier 2. Anything below that, we don't have to worry too much about. And we also don't want to worry about suffixes, because we can always just multi-mod attack speed, quality, and some good old % physical damage and slam the last suffix if required. So all we really care about here are prefixes. We can actually let the website tell us what's the best combination of fossils to use to acquire or to achieve this combination of mods. So we can actually compute this by clicking compute best selection, and the website does all the work for us and is basically going to spit out the best method to actually get this. So you'll see a left column and a right column. The left one is basically raw efficiency. So this is if you have infinite currency and you really just want to get it quickly, what's the best way I can do it? Well, if I use etheric, corroded, jagged, and serrated in a 4-socket resonator, it's going to cost a fortune, but I'll get it within 156 tries. On the other hand, if I want to go the cheap route, what's the most cost-efficient way of achieving these modifiers? So the website is telling us etheric, corroded, and jagged on a 3 on a 3 mod. Etheric, corroded, jagged should happen within 75 tries instead of, well, that's kind of stupid because now it says 156, which doesn't really make sense. So actually, it's also better to simply use the most cost-efficient method, I would assume, unless something went wrong along the way. But if you were to use etheric, corroded, and jagged, you would see it within 75 tries, or at least that's what it should be. And it's going to cost, you know, whatever is shown here. That being said, there is one thing about this website that is absolutely wrong, and that is the price of their different, the price of the fossils that they tell you to use a lot of the time are wrong, and the price of resonators are absolutely wrong. But that's not really their fault. I'm guessing they're pulling the prices from PoE Ninja or something like that, so it's really not their fault. But we all know that when it comes to buying fossils or resonators in bulk to craft, you're going to have to pay a premium. So in reality, for example, if you were to buy etheric fossils, maybe they would be 2C each in bulk. If you were to buy corroded fossils, maybe they would be 10C each in bulk. And if you were to buy jagged fossils, 2C each, and powerful resonators, 3 sockets, are about 10C each in bulk. Let's just say. Now, all of a sudden, the average costs per success would be about 1,800 chaos instead of whatever it said at first. which is where it can actually get kind of interesting, because by changing this cost here, sometimes the cost efficiency is actually going to be proven to be wrong. I haven't found this to be true in most cases, but when it comes to this specific craft, which is why I chose it actually, it can actually be wrong. So the actual best method of crafting these bows with the bleed modifier and the physical damage is actually by using just jagged fossils. By using just and only jagged fossils, you're expected to see it within about every 500 or so tries, right? While by using jagged and corroded, which is what a lot of people tell me to use on stream, which is weird because it's not even in the options. But by using jagged and corroded, something like I said, a lot of people tell me to use on stream, it's expected to happen every 135 tries. Now the thing is, these numbers don't really add up, because if you're to buy that many, to be able to do that many, you're going to have to buy these pretty much in exalt ratios. And at that point, if we have a look at PoE.sale, right, and we want to get corroded fossils, corroded fossils will basically be about 17 or 16 per exalt or so. So getting 135 of them is really going to cost about 8 exalts, and then 2 socket resonators are going to cost roughly, they're about 22 per exalt is mostly what I've been paying. So getting 135 of those is going to be another 6 exalt, bringing this total up to like 6.13, like 15 exalts. And on top of that, you also have to add the jagged fossil cost, which in this case is going to be about 2C each or so, which is not too big of a deal. It's about another 2 exalts there. So we're at like 16 exalts. While if you were to use jagged fossils by themselves, you would probably pay, I think those are about 1,000 chaos, basically 2C each. And these are about 3C each. It's about 5C per slam, essentially. So those are 3C each, so plus 1,500. Oh, well, might actually be better that way. 40. 17 exalts. Oh, very, very close, actually. When it comes to the price of basically either going jagged by itself or jagged and corroded. I guess the only difference would be the availability of, let's say, buying the 2 socket resonators for the price that we actually spoke about, and buying the corroded fossils for the price that we spoke about. Otherwise, it seems that on a pure efficiency standpoint, it might actually be better to go that way. It might even be better to go this way with a 3-socket resonator. In this case, etheric fossils are actually quite cheap. Corroded fossils are not that cheap, but 75 of them is not that expensive. So you could go ahead and check out the price of corroded fossils, which I believe we said was like 15. So that's 5 exalts. About 1 exalt worth of jagged by 75. Etheric fossils, on the other hand, are also not too expensive, I believe. Yeah, etheric fossils are like 35 to 40 per exalt. So here we'd be getting, let's just say 2 exalts for the etheric fossils, and but the 3-socket resonators are kind of expensive, and by kind of I mean incredibly very, very expensive. They're about 15 per exalt, so getting 75 of those would be an extra 6 exalt, right? Or 15, yeah, 5 exalts, sorry. Oops, not what I meant to do. 6, 8, 14, yeah, 14 exalts. So you would see that in this case, actually, it just might be right. So maybe I was wrong the whole time. So this was the cost of going with corroded jagged. This was the cost of going with simply jagged. And this was the cost of going with etheric, corroded, and jagged. So I myself have learned today that I think this is actually the best method to go about crafting these bows. Not only is this the best method to craft these bows, I think in a league where 3-socket resonators are not incredibly expensive, which they normally aren't, they're actually the same price than 1-socket resonators typically, and 2-socket resonators are the very expensive ones. This method would actually be, you could almost call it cheap compared to anything else, because etheric fossils are never expensive and neither are jagged, but corroded can be a little bit more expensive than they currently are. That being said, spending 14 exalts to come out with a 20 plus exalt bow, because when you roll tier 2 physical damage, you get a bow worth about 25 exalts or so, and if you roll T1 physical damage, you get a bow that can sell for over 35 to 40 exalts. So there's definitely some profit to be made there. So yeah, that's essentially how this website works. Obviously, I think this compute best selection, you do need to verify your prices like I just did. But, you know, if the website, in terms of numbers, the numbers should be right, like 100% right, when it comes to the number of tries and the confidence levels. That being said, when it comes to prices, be sure to double check your investments. But otherwise, really, I think it's actually quite good. Now, a reason why I would personally not go with the etheric, corroded, and jagged version of this craft, or even the corroded and jagged version of this craft. The reason why I would actually only spam jaggeds for this specific craft, and this is not something you should apply to every single craft, but when it comes to physical-based weapons especially, this is something you should apply. Only going with 1-socket jagged is actually mostly a better method. Even if on paper it might not seem like it, the thing is, every single time that you use a jagged fossils, you have the odds of basically getting all the way up to like a mirror tier triple T1 bow, and getting more tries out of your same amount of money, in my opinion, is actually an advantage, which is why I craft my foils with just jagged. I craft claws, physical claws, like imperial claws, with just jagged. I would craft a bow with just jaggeds. And the reason is, even if it's on average going to cost me more to get this specific combination with the bleed modifier, I'm going to get so many more sellable bows out of my money, out of the same amount of currency, because I am going to hit so many more other good set of prefixes which I can sell. For example, a bow like this, flaring dictators, right? Much more likely to happen if I'm using just jagged fossils, because I'm going to get so many more tries out of my money. And a bow like this is worth like 15 plus exalts, which, by the way, this needs to be scoured. It's going to be worth like 15 plus exalts for just 2 affixes of flaring and dictators. And multi-modded sells for about 20 exalts, while the odds of rolling a bow like this when using the corroded fossils is not only lesser because you have the bleed modifier, but you're going to get a lot less actual tries out of the same amount of currency, because every single try is going to be a lot more costly. So that's why when it comes to physical modifier, I would only spam jaggeds like 99.9% of the time. Even if you're trying to get like a bleed mod or any other mod, I would still only go with jagged fossils. That being said, when it comes to just about any other crafts, I think their new fossil optimizer is absolutely amazing, and you guys should 100% use it, but obviously verify the prices and make sure those are right. Otherwise, you probably saw that I have an absolute incredible amount of these cobalt jewels. Actually, I have a quad tab of them, and they're all crafted for the ore stacking build that's currently very popular. So the next video is actually going to cover, basically, I'm going to finish crafting and val every single one of them on stream, but I'll be making a video of the results, and if I think it was basically a worthwhile investment, or if I think I lost currency by doing this. Now, before I go, as always, I do want to give a huge shout out to my patrons. Drew, KFish, Jason, Casticus, Mathias, Nicolas, MrCoffee, Gikona, and Jagged. You guys are all freaking amazing. To everybody who supported me in the past and also who wishes to remain anonymous, because some of you guys do, huge thank you to every single one of you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully I'm pretty sure I covered just about everything when it comes to using that website that I think is mostly important. There is a feature for metacrafting, but I'll probably talk about it in another video when I go metacraft something and I show you guys how I go about it, because it doesn't affect, it's not too important for a very large portion of the player base. Otherwise, that's going to be Matthew signing out until the next one. That being said, there's actually a name that's not being shown here, which I also happen to not be able to read, and there should not be an E in Tim. That's just my brain being trash. Either way, hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.